Everybody, Billy Rainford here again from Direct Motocross. This Zoom video interview is going to be brought to you by Scott Sports, Mika Sport Canada, the Canadian distributors. We're going to try something a little different today because I know tons of people are at home wondering what the heck they can do, how they can get ready. I mean, we do have a season coming up eventually. Where should you be in your training? What should you be doing on bike, off bike, all that kind of stuff, not knowing when we're going to start exactly. So it's a bit of a different situation this season. So I thought it'd be cool. We got Jonathan Mascola here. He's from Montreal. He's a trainer. He's trained a lot of people that you'll know and currently training people you'll know. So Jonathan, man, I thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. My pleasure.
Now, it looks like you might be, what's going on there? You look like you might be in your garage. I guess coronavirus is doing something.
Yeah, exactly. We're just reestablished all the equipment in my home garage and mostly doing virtual training and online. Was already training a lot of riders online before, but now integrated a lot of groups online, classes, everything like that. So even more now.
So, no, it's interesting. And, watching the news, I mean, it's nonstop coronavirus news, but now people are learning that they can do an awful lot of the stuff that they were going into offices for and doing things. You're probably going to just blossom into more virtual and online training out of all this.
Yeah, for sure. It's been very effective, even probably more effective for some people than it's been going to the gym and all that, because they're in the comfort of their own home. And with a couple weights or some bodyweight exercise, they get as effective workouts as being in the gym for sure.
Cool, man. Okay, well, a lot of people are going to recognize the names of some of the people that you train there in Quebec and everything, and across the country and stuff. But maybe people don't know you specifically. Let's talk about your history. Where did you grow up, and how did you get into this whole sport of motocross?
Yes, so I'm originally out of Montreal, and I've raced for about 7 years. I started riding bikes at around 10 years old. And I've stopped racing after a few injuries and all that, but I've always had a passion for training and all that. And I did a bachelor's degree in kinesiology, which is specialized in human movement. And now I've been training riders ever since I started training people. So a lot of experience, a lot of pro riders. I've even followed Kevin Benoit for a while. Tim Tremblay a little bit, snowcross riders, Max Taillefer, a couple of pros right now like Jeremy Mackay, F. Brodeur, a lot of big names.
Okay, yeah, well, for sure. I wanted to get to some of those people there. Obviously, I was kind of lurking you there on Instagram, and I saw Kevin and Ev and Jeremy, and we did a funny little thing with Jeremy and Thomas Rendell. They kind of went head to head. We had a little bit of a funny interview with those guys. That was kind of fun. But okay, now, so you grew up in Montreal. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 35 right now. So
okay,
I've raced for like 7 years. I stopped around 25, raced up to intermediate, which is like semi-pro. And now I just specialize in training mostly.
Okay, cool, man. So being that age, and from Quebec, who was your motocross idol or idols back in the day? Who'd you look up to?
Yes, so back in the days, Jean-Sébastien Roy and Marco Dubé used to practice with those guys, especially Marco also, and used to ride a lot with Kevin Gregoire also back then.
Okay. Now, who over the over the years, these guys back then was, I guess, well, JSR was certainly a hard trainer and stuff like that. When in Canada, I know everybody looks back in the States at guys. I mean, even guys like back in the '80s with guys like. All the top dudes like Ricky Johnson, Johnny O'Marin, those guys were hard trainers, but everybody kind of credits Ricky Carmichael for taking it to that next level of if you don't train like a maniac, you're just not going to succeed. Is there someone in Canada that did that, or would you say it was something like back in those days? What do you think?
Yeah, with internet now and social media, we get access to like a lot of riders' trainings and the way they prepare for motocross seasons and all that. And we get inspired by that a lot. So it's a lot of influence from the States, even from Europe also. But even like Ricky Carmichael used to train like crazy at another level. So I think that got it going really.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too, because I mean, you look at somebody, if they weren't training hard, you can kind of see what they're, I mean, there's definitely a science to body type. I mean, certain people are fighting genetics and all that kind of stuff. So there are certain, like I could never put weight on, and other people have to fight to get it off. And anyway, one problem's just as bad as the other of people. So it's not always fun and games when you're skinny, but yeah. So Let's talk a bit about kind of a moto specific training and what we're doing. I mean, there's all kinds of ideas. I mean, you look at half these guys, a lot of them could be professional cyclists by now, right? I mean, we do so much cycling and stuff, but what do you do when you grab someone and say, okay, you need to start training? What do you do with them?
Yeah, so being online right now, it's the most effective is doing assessments online. So we go with some a little bit of functional movement screening that we call. So we do video assessments of all riders to start off. We test all basic movements to see like a little bit their movement patterns, muscle stiffness, what's strong, what's not, a couple of strength tests, and then we go from there.
Okay. Hey, over the years, who would you say was the fittest person you've ever seen?
The fittest person would be, well, Kevin Benoit is pretty hard to beat on that level, that's for sure. Put in a lot of time in training too.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, you look at the top guys, it's no surprise that you'd name a top rider that would be one of the fittest guys. So that makes sense. I always joke about a story like back when I was in high school. We went to grade 13 back then. I was in grade 13, racing dirt bikes, hated running, hated all the training and stuff. And we had someone come into our biology class and do tests on us. And when he tested me, he said, "Oh my God, you must be a marathon runner, or do you do tons of running or cycling?" I said, "No, I don't do any running or any cycling. I race motocross." And he couldn't believe it. Like my heart rate was so low and the body fat, so it's kind of cool. And what I always say is at a younger age, you can get away with just riding a lot. But when you hit like, I don't know, 18, 19 years old, the youthful exuberance, and you really need to get serious about training. So I guess it's about when you're younger, creating good habits to health, right? So how young do you grab someone, and how do you base that?
Yeah, exactly. So I can start with riders even around, I've trained riders that are like maybe 10 or 12 years old. So that's probably the youngest age that I've trained some riders. But people can start weight training or cardiovascular training even younger. But it starts really showing results when you do a lot of frequency and all that. But as you get older too, it's harder to keep a higher conditioning level and all that. And when you're younger, it's a little bit easier because you're more active. You also weigh less, so your body's like less taxing on oxygen and all that. So you can get away with it a little bit easier.
Right now, I know there's a lot of people that Sean Moffenbauer always used to joke because he'd always say, "I'm not after show muscles. Like you don't want to get too big." How much do you base on weight training versus on bike versus cycling, running, and all that kind of stuff? Like you don't want to be too big.
No, exactly. You don't want any riders to be too bulky or just getting the upper body too big or even the legs. You just want it to be as effective as possible and get the rider as strong as possible also. But there's also a limit to getting too strong or too big. If some riders are really way too skinny, then they need to gain some muscle for sure. But that's more functional muscle. So not like bodybuilding exercises, but more like a lot of core training. And you need to periodize everything as much as you can before season, in season, and after season also.
Right. So I want to talk to you about that. Like I say, I've done a bunch of this kind of stuff in my past and everything in a different sport and stuff. But there's, like you said, there's peaking. There's, you want to do some build up. You need some base training. The problem with this season is we're not 100% sure when it's going to start. So there's people at home right now, they want to go riding. They want to go get fit. What should they be doing? I mean, how do you target your fitness right now?
Yeah, exactly. So at home right now, people are very limited with equipment. So for strength training, I wouldn't put too much work on that, but we really do a lot of conditioning workouts right now with riders. Circuit style, 3 to 5 exercises at a time, even more sometimes. A lot of interval style. For strength, very effective at home. Single leg work is good because it's easier to overload and all that. But also there's a question of not getting too much muscle mass and doing too much volume.
Right. So this is what people say, this is putting money in the bank right now. You need to get your base up. You need to keep fit. You don't want to be too peaked. And then when it comes to the season, that's when you take the money out of the bank and all your fitness and stuff, right? So right now you're kind of building a base kind of thing. And obviously you're saying intervals and stuff. This doesn't sound like fun for people, and it's probably not, but this is the kind, whenever you watch a sporting movie, they always do a time lapse thing of them getting fit and doing the sprints and the burpees. But unfortunately, people need to do that stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Conditioning exercises are probably the biggest link that people are missing. So it's either like cardiovascular work, like HIIT work, for example. It could be also balance work, agility, mobility work. But you got to make it all linked together and to be functional on the bike. So that's where we bridge the gap in coaching.
Right. Okay. So what do you, 'cause a lot of people out there, I mean, you look at some people, they look fit. Muscles obviously don't mean you're fit. So it's always something you always have to a conversation. But what's kind of the biggest mistake people would be making right now? Say you're at home, you got tons of spare time. Is there something people should avoid doing right now?
Yeah, I see a lot of people overtraining right now because they have a little bit too much time. So you go up to like training 2-3 hours a day, but you have to keep in mind that the body needs to recover to peak. So it's like a wave. When you train, you get tired, and then you overcompensate with more energy, more strength, all these parameters. But people have to watch out not getting hurt and overtraining and doing the right exercises for themselves. So they have to equilibrate their body, work as much the core, the shoulders, their cardio, but everything in proportion.
Right. So people should feel fit right now because they're putting, like I say, the money in the bank. They're doing the endurance stuff right now and the strength training. But they shouldn't, they should wait till they know what the season's going to be. I mean, in a lot of sports, I don't know, a sprinting sport or something like that, it's a little bit different. But motocross, you can kind of carry a certain level of fitness into it and still be fine. But so, take us through something people should be doing. I don't know if you're dressed maybe for it. Do you want to do you feel like showing people maybe some certain things that they should be doing and get specific?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, cool. That'd be fun.
One thing that riders are lacking right now that I see the most is mobility work. So active stretching. So I can show you a few exercises that I use with a lot of riders, for example, and like a little circuit that I do like almost every workout, which is very basic movements, but just to release the hips, the lower back, and the whole body, for example.
Oh man, if you don't mind doing that, I think that'd be beneficial for people.
Yeah, for sure.
If we got the time,
Absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah, so each move, for example, can do 30 seconds each. It's just basic movements. So always start off with riders stretching their hips. So holding a garland pose, for example, and pushing out the knees with the elbows. Just open up the hips for like 30 seconds. You can hold up to like 1 minute. That's a good first move to start off before working out.
Hey, let me jump in there. Have you watched that Formula One series on Netflix?
Yeah, for sure.
How about Ricardo? Ricardo always does that, right? He's always sitting in that position.
Yeah, exactly. This position is like based from yoga. So it's one of the best stretches you can do every day. You can even do it a few minutes a day and accumulate up to like maybe 5 minutes total in a day, but it's going to release your hips really well.
Okay.
Yeah, so second move I like to do a lot is bodyweight squats. I like overhead because it keeps the spine straight. You keep your legs pretty wide, your knees out, and you always try to push out with your feet. So like you're spreading the floor, so you activate your glutes, and you try to go as low as possible, and then you come back up with your hips. So this is great to do. Go all the way down, control, and you're always pushing out with the feet and driving up with the hips.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
So also other moves that I like to do with riders, you wouldn't believe how tight they are in the adductor muscles, so inner thighs. So this exercise is probably one of the most effective. It's called the Cossack Squat. So put your feet really wide and you go side to side as low as possible. And that's really going to open up the hip, inner thigh, hamstrings. So I can do that in your warm-ups also.
Hey, it's funny. What you mentioned that about the adductors. I didn't realize that specific thing, but I switched from moto to another sport and everything. And the only thing that would stop me in some of the longer events was my adductors would cramp right up and I couldn't even move them. So there's a perfect example. I should have been doing that.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of riders have the adductors way too strong. So the muscles are really tight there, but that's limiting the way their legs are moving.
Okay.
And it's getting also fatigue, back tightness, all that comes together. And they get more tired on the back or more tired in the legs or in the back. And also they eventually getting a spasm in their back or getting hurt.
Man, I think I can think of a few riders right now who are going to go, okay, and myself included. So I'm going to add that certainly into my routine.
Yeah, for sure. So like Also, other basic moves, for example, split squats are very effective to stretch out the legs. I like to go really far and go like all the way down, stretch the hip at the bottom, and do really slow reps and just open up the muscle fibers and get them in the right range of motion.
Okay, okay.
Yes, and other moves, for example, another one that's one of the best back mobility exercise that I can give you is pretty simple. You're gonna lie down on your back and you bring one knee up on the side, turning your hips, and you put your arm here, push down on your knee with your other arm, so you feel a stretch here in the glute and the lower back, and you do a full rotation back and forth of the spine, and you also lean back and bring your rib cage down at the end with deep breaths. So that's really going to open up all the posterior chain.
Okay, that's interesting because I've always done the move with your arm open, not bringing it over. So that's interesting to see it actually moving like that.
Yeah, this is one of the most effective ones because it really gets like the lower back and the thoracic spine at the same time.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Another move that I want to add also in the routine, for example, is thoracic mobility moves. So one of the main ones we use for the upper back is get on your hands like this, and you can even sit back on a foam roller to make your hips more stable, and you go into a rotation like this, and you breathe in, and you go all the way inside here where your arm is, and you come back up. So all those can be done like in 30 seconds on each side style, or 10 to 15 reps, for example.
Okay, that's interesting. Nice. Okay, I've actually never seen that move.
Yeah, this move is pretty effective for thoracic spine, but there's a bunch of others also.
Okay, that's cool. All right, well, that's okay. So there's a few. Any other ones you want to add there, or should we? Is that good?
Also, like doing push-ups in your routine to warm up is probably one of the most effective things to do for shoulders. I like doing them off a bench or a couch to warm up, just to really just get the blood flow going, go up and down, wake up your shoulders, all the scapular muscles. Also, if you have a little band at home, pull-aparts are very good to warm up the shoulders, prevent injuries before workouts if you're doing some dynamic work also. And also, like, if you have some bands and stuff, a lot of rows, upper back rows, stuff like that to warm up.
Okay. Hey, I was wondering, is it true that the first rule of CrossFit is to always talk about CrossFit?
Yes, exactly. Don't get me started, please.
Hey, my neighbor.
I love watching CrossFit. I don't love doing CrossFit.
All right, I'm just kidding. My next door neighbor owns a CrossFit gym in London, so it's kind of funny.
Too funny.
Hey, what about this too? I remember years ago hearing some people that, I mean, I think we know every motocross rider, like I say, is a pretty accomplished cyclist because it's good transfer and stuff like that. But I remember someone said that a trainer was telling him that he shouldn't because it tightens up your glute, tightens up some other muscles and stuff. But as a cross training, would you say cycling is one of the most effective?
Yeah, I think cycling is one of the most effective because you can get those heart rates up, especially road cycling, for example, similar to motocross racing. So it's really hard to do it running, and a lot of riders just don't have the right movement patterns to do a lot of running or jogging and all that. So I personally think cycling and, for example, rowing, and now we have skier machines out, so those are really effective.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple of your athletes. I mean, you mentioned Jeremy Mackay is kind of your new up and comer. He's a young kid. I think he just turned 17, or is he 16? So we got a young kid there. What kind of things would you tell a 16, 17-year-old kid?
Yeah, exactly. So I just started off with Jeremy about a month ago, and he just went through a first program with me, which was all body weight. So just to really open up his muscles, get his mobility better, and get his core stronger too. So that's the first things that we do with some riders in a phase one. And then we go into more complicated exercises, more core training, more resistance, all that.
Right. I don't want to say he's necessarily fighting genetics, but he's a big kid. He comes from big stock. So sometimes it's tougher. Like, I'm 6'3", for example, and it's kind of tough on a bike sometimes to be in the right. Like, what do you tell the bigger people, like taller and bigger in general? Is there something, sometimes it's hard to look good on a bike when you're tall.
Yeah, that's it. The bikes are not made for that tall people, but they adjust. But the thing is with these riders is you got to watch out. They don't gain too much muscle or too much weight, especially on a 250, because that's going to kill some horsepower for sure. So we're really watching out like the amount of volume of exercises, but also the resistance that he's using, so it doesn't gain too much muscle, just more power, endurance, and explosivity.
Okay, now you mentioned Ev Brodeur too. Let's move it over to the the female side of things. Is it different? Is it the same? What do you do with Ev?
Yeah, Ev, I've been training her on Zoom more in private too. So actually working with her a lot of mobility stuff and all that. Loosening up her legs were pretty stiff, but I already see a good progress in the past couple of months that I've been working with her this year, and it's been going well.
All right, cool. Now I'm trying to build up some hype for the Women's East Series here when we get it going. But Ev, how about a girl like Isabelle Thibault, won the championship last year in the East? I mean, is Ev going to do, is she coming in fitter than ever? What do you work on, the mental, the fitness, or what do you do there?
Yeah, Ev is in pretty good shape right now, and she's going to be pretty hard to beat, that's for sure.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so, sorry? Yeah, so like the bottom line, what should, like in this kind of weird time, what should someone watches this video and then goes, you know what, okay, it's time I get doing something. What should they do? Get out, well, I guess they should contact you and find out what they should be doing, but get out and just don't overdo it.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to mention I have one class that's free every week on my page. It's going to be every Saturday morning. So if people want to join on, it's motofitness_QC. And you can join on there. I'm going to post the new times by tomorrow. But also, if riders just want a quick example of how to train and all that, the best thing to do is try to pick and choose like 3 to 5 exercises per circuit that you're doing. Keep it pretty simple. Try to work legs a lot of different angles. Work on side lunges, all that, because a lot of people are tight there and they don't realize you can't just work in the front plane and the back plane. And also a lot of core exercises. I love a lot of stability work, one-arm planks, a lot of variation of those. So a lot of circuits that I make are like based on a lot of exercises, for example, like 3 leg exercises in a row, which are like variations of lunges, squats, or jumps. And then we combine with some core and upper body circuits too. So it's really full body, simulating what happens on the bike too. And also the heart rate goes up pretty high.
Wow. Now, none of that sounds like fun. And I know back in my day sort of thing, we would have been like, no, I don't think so. I'm just going to go have a cigarette, have a beer, and go do some riding or whatever. But now I think just because of the internet and things like that, people realize they have to do this. So I guess it's easier now to get a young person into doing these crazy, circuit trainings and all this core stuff, right? It's got to be a bit easier these days.
Yeah, exactly. With virtual right now, it's the most motivating thing you can do at home, because it's hard to train alone. You show up in your basement and you're like, you can slack and everything, but if you're following something more specific on video, or you have a training program, at least it's going to help you stay on point and be more accountable also.
Nice, man. So what other kind of people, do you train any Olympians or anything like that? You seen anybody go to the Olympics or anything? Any other sports? You mentioned a couple, but anything else?
Yeah, I've trained a lot of different athletes, NCAA players that play basketball. I've trained a lot of hockey players too, pretty high level, US college level, all that. But a lot of pro riders in motocross and snowcross mostly.
Okay, hey, what do you say to there was always the argument about the most fit athletes on the planet. I guess our races have gotten shorter, so it's a bit of a different argument now, but it was always between motocross racers and soccer players.
Yeah, I know. I personally, I've played a lot of sports in my life, but nothing compares to motocross racing, because you got to become one with the bike, and you're stabilizing the bike the whole race, so there's never any slacking. In soccer, there's always a little bit of slacking, and also you got to think about the heart rate, the adrenaline levels, and also like just the fact that the whole body is working like the whole time to stabilize the bike,
Right. Yeah, it's cool. It's always a fun conversation to have. And half the people, when you have this conversation, have never even heard of motocross and stuff. But like, you just sit there and turn the throttle. It's like, no, you don't. But so you get sick of that argument. I know that for sure over the years. But all right, Jonathan. Well, anything else you want to mention before we let you go here? And I appreciate your time here. That's kind of fun. Hopefully, a lot of people will watch this. Maybe get a hold of you over there at MotoFitness_QC on Instagram. And you're also, what are you? You're JM Training on Facebook, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I have two different pages. It's GM Training _MTL. That's my main page, and that's on Instagram. And there's GM Training Montreal on Facebook. But I mostly use Moto Fitness _QC for riders because it's more specific to riders, and I can really I'm trying to create a community also of just motocross preparation and snowcross and endurocross riders too.
All right. Well, you've motivated me. I think I'm going to go do some burpees, maybe some sit-ups, and definitely the side-to-side lunges to work on those adductors, because that's amazing. That was like a light bulb going off when you said that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So it's just always trying to equilibrate your training and work everything, like you can't just work your shoulders, do push-ups. You have to work your upper back, your stabilizers, your core, your sides, especially your oblique. I wanted to specify also, a lot of riders neglect oblique training, and more precisely oblique slings. So oblique slings really control the way your core reacts and your balance and all that. So a lot of exercises are very important for to do like core rotation stuff and all that. And a lot of people neglect that. So that's very important to do.
Can I hold like a broom handle and do this, or a hockey stick?
Yeah, you could, but there's a lot of other exercises that I would maybe change, not change, but for example, use instead of that. There's a classic Russian twist people do. But also think about anti-rotation exercises. So for example, one of my favorite exercises I want people to try, and it's really great one. You grab just a dumbbell or a kettlebell, and you hold into a hollow body position, and you engage your core, and you just do like a one-arm press, for example, and your core is going to go on fire for sure, So these exercises are the money makers for sure.
Okay, well, that's cool. Hopefully some people will look at that. I know it's I don't know, sometimes these things you just need to be shown what to do and stuff like that. And it's kind of fun they're actually kind of fun to do different, because I know a ton of people aren't at home doing that stuff. That's, you know what I mean? A lot of people, oh, no, I'm going to go do some bench press, work on my triceps.
Exactly. People go to more classic stuff, but that's where we come out with more core exercises or stuff that's going to solicit a lot more functional strength and core activation.
Right. I think a lot of people will go to a gym to do some of the show muscle stuff. But like you say, the group, like your Zoom thing and stuff like that, for doing stuff that, to be honest, isn't exactly fun sometimes. It's a lot of work doing all these exercises you're talking about. So the group atmosphere will actually help motivate you, right? So, I mean, that's a really, really key thing right now.
No, exactly. A lot of riders have jumped in, and a lot of new ones lately, and they love it because it's always a good variety of exercises, and also that intensity you can't get it by doing it on your own. That's for sure.
All right, man. Well, that's really cool. And is this, if you join in on Zoom, are we going to see you in this garage here?
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna feel like you're in my garage gym. Some people think they feel like they're in a gym when they're doing my class. So it's pretty effective.
Hey, what would say someone joins? Do they need kettlebells, or they need some low weights? What do they need?
Yeah, exactly. They just, I've been mostly training riders with, I only use one kettlebell mostly. Sometimes a few more accessories like bands, but if you only have one kettlebell or one weight, that's pretty effective. Or else I have some riders even just using a detergent jug full of water, or they fill up with sand or rocks and they use it as a kettlebell.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, because not everybody has kettlebells and stuff. Like what, like a 5 to 8 pounder kind of thing, or?
For example, I suggest for people that are pretty used to training, a little bit of experience, for guys, maybe start with a couple of kettlebells, maybe a 20 or a 25, and a 30 and a 40, for example. That's going to open into a lot of exercises. For girls, maybe a 15-pound kettlebell, you can do a lot of work. Maybe 20, 25 if the girl is stronger, but you don't want it to be too heavy also.
Well, yeah, well, I'm embarrassed. I said 5 or 8 pounds.
Yeah, that's a little bit light.
Okay. All right. Hey, well, Jonathan, thank
Yes.
you very much for taking the time, man. That was hopefully that was eye-opening to some people. Hopefully it'll help some people get motivated. Hopefully you'll see some more people on your Zoom things. People can show up on the free one, like you mentioned. Go check them out. Do you want to thank anyone while we got you here, or do you want to end it there? What do you think?
Yeah, I just want to thank all the riders that put in confidence in me in the past few years. I love what I do because I used to race, and motocross is still my first sport, my passion. So I just love training riders. Thanks to Jeremy Mackay, brother, Loic Leonard, all these pro riders, Max Teifer, Pat 2 years also. I just want to say thanks because with those guys and those girls, it makes me gain experience with riders, and it makes me want to push even more.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thank you very much. Like I say, thanks for taking the time. Thanks to Scott Sports Canada, Mika Sport Canada for getting behind this Zoom video interview. Thank you very much, man, and good luck. I got to go change into my sweats and get to work here, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, man. I get to work. Yes.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, man.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Goodbye.